but they're required. And I'm going to show you police officers that are speaking out about that tonight, in video and stuff. They're getting fired. They're they're being reprimanded first, but then when they finally don't do what they're supposed to, they're getting fired. Anyway, I had the privilege, and it was a privilege this time, to be a Republican delegate at the state committee, or at the state Republican conference. And we accomplished something. I told you last week I was going to read you something that we actually did accomplish. And I was so proud that we did. And I have a co-delegate here with me that's running for senator, and she is going to be your future senator. I'm just going to make sure, but I'm not exactly how I'm going to do that. But right now I'm going to read to you what we passed as Republicans. The reason I'm doing this, folks, is I realize that there are a lot of you out there, just like myself, that think that, the whole thing's a sham. They keep giving us selections, not elections, and that is true. But we have to, from the grassroots up, start putting people in that just say no, mean what they say, and they're going to mean what they say till they die or get jailed or get kicked out of office. And if we start that way, we can get things done. This thing I'm getting ready to read to you was essentially pretty much done by one individual, pushing and pushing and pushing for 8 years. But this sends a message to the nation about how Missouri Republicans feel about this issue. Let me read it to you. It's amendment to the Missouri Republican platform. Now that's what gets sent up to the National Republican platform, which they're crooked as crooked can be, but this is what got sent up to them in the 2016 state convention. Whereas taxing income is stealing the money of the citizens of the state of Missouri and is evil. And whereas taxing income is the second plank of Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto and is not about funding government. And whereas taxing income is a command and control system and has loosed the chains of our nation's Constitution. And whereas by taxing income, the Constitution cannot protect us has made the government the master of we the people. And whereas taxing income has made we the people slaves of the government and must end for we the people to be free again. Now, wherefore, the Missouri Republican Party supports repealing Amendment 16 to the U.S. Constitution, which will right our nation's ship of state, and we the people will be masters of our own lives again, and government will serve as servant of the people as our founding fathers intended. Now, that got passed, folks, by the Republicans. The old hardline, stiff-necked old Republicans, they were there, but there was enough grassroots people that have pushed long enough to force those old stiff-necked, dyed-in-the-wool Republicans to do something this bold. And it was a proud moment, and I'm thankful that I got to be there. One of the people to help pass that was Kristi Nichols, and I have her sitting here with me, and I've known her through quite a few different events and watching the way she votes at Republican things.
That's what counts.
Watching the way she votes at Republican stuff. And she needs to be our senator, and we won't get screwed over if she's our senator. And so I just invited her on today. We're going to get to know her for an hour, and I'm probably going to let phones be open to
That would be wonderful.
After we get going for a while.
That would be great.
Because you're not scared of any questions.
I'm not afraid of any questions. I am a diehard constitutional conservative, and I've been in this fight along with you for a number of years. And it is very rewarding to be down at the convention as a delegate and see this platform amendment pass with an overwhelming majority. Even people that are diehard establishment people decided, hey, we've had enough too. And these grassroots people have been probably right all these years that we've been opposing them. And it's really wonderful to see people get that light bulb that goes on. And it really means something to actually be sitting there and know that we did something really powerful. I was really proud of the whole delegation this weekend.
Yeah, that was the thing about the vote. It was like they finally got it.
They finally got it.
It wasn't because they were just going along.
No, they realized what's
it.
happening to them, what's happening to their families, what's happening to their businesses, what's happening with this federal government that is outside the bounds of the Constitution. And it has been the grassroots people. You know, years ago in 2009, I started one of the first In God We Trust tea parties down at the Kristi Nichols fountain. And that was just a place of people to gather, to protest against the government, to protest against Obamacare and the federal government overreach, all of these things with taxes. And people came out by the droves. They came from Kansas, they came from Missouri, people that just wanted to be heard. And that's what we talked about briefly with the Donald Trump movement. I was down in St. Louis the day before he came to Kansas City, and only 7,000 people could get in. But what thousands of people did is they came out to be counted, Kevin. They wanted to, it didn't matter that they didn't get into the venue. They wanted everyone to know that we are taking back this government, and it's about we the people, and Donald Trump is leading that movement, and it's time for us to be heard and to go back to the Constitution and to say, we're not going to take it anymore. We've had enough. We've had enough of being nice and being told to sit down and just go along with us. I mean, they have lied repeatedly over and over to us again, and we're the ones with the answers. So we're the majority, and it's time that we rise up, and we are, and we can see that people all over America, not only in Missouri, feel the same way that we do, but it's making a difference.
Right. And, you know, I don't want to take the focus away from you, Kristi, but on the Donald Trump thing, you know, maybe he didn't start it out completely genuine. I don't know. But wouldn't you think that a man who had sense and was a businessman, everywhere he goes across the nation, this thing is building, and it's evident what it actually is.
Yes.
It's not him.
No, and he said that.
Him.
Yes.
It's us.
It's us.
And, man, he's got to wake up to the fact where I better do this, or I'm in trouble.
I think it's been an enlightening experience for him, because I think when he first started out, I think that it was really about, I mean, someone that has been that successful in business, I think a lot of it was ego, and you really do have to have a really strong ego to take the kind of hits that he's taken. You know, in business and also running for this, everybody discounted him and said, oh, it's impossible, you'll be out in a minute. Well, he wasn't out in a minute. He excelled. He beat out over, 17 other candidates and the establishment, which was a great victory for the grassroots effort. But he became the voice of the people. He became our voice. And everything that he said, there were people in the past, Herman Cain, tried to run a few years ago, and they were able to shut him up. The establishment has been wonderful in the past in being able to shut people up and stop them, but they couldn't stop Trump because it's a movement, and the people are fed up enough, and they said, we're going to rise up, and we're going to get on board with the Trump train. This is our guy, and we know it, and this is the hour.
Well, I think one of the reasons the press trashed him so early on is because he flat said what they were.
Yes.
And, with this radio station and the things we report on these shows that are on here, we know that the press is trash and that they don't tell the truth about
We know that
things.
they're biased,
He said it right up front.
Yes.
And so half the attacks probably on him stem from what he said about the press.
Yes.
And they've got a vendetta.
And the great thing for all of us is that when smaller groups and venues have been shut down, he continued to excel and rise because he didn't shut down and say, okay, I'll be softer now. I'll go. They're not going to let me in. So he continued to be who he's always been in business, very bold, very articulate in what he says. He says what he means, and he means what he says, and he doesn't back down on that. And people either have to get on board with it or they have to get out. And that's what, when I'm running, I was able to meet him. It was a real honor to meet him in Kansas City. He had said that he wanted to meet me because I was running for U.S. Senate, and he said, "You're like a little me." And I kind of laughed at that. I was thinking about that going, but I told him, praying for him, but also, that I was running this U.S. Senate campaign, and I'm anti-establishment and pro-Constitution, and it's a We the People campaign, and he understood that, and it was really an honor for me to meet him. But he said, "Now you go and you win, right?" And I said, I will, but a lot of times people think that you have to work your way up. I've got to be a state senator or a state rep. Well, I've been a Republican all my life, but I have been very much anti-establishment because I see what the establishment and the career politicians do. And so in this campaign, it is very much a we the people. It's about the people. It's about, just like Donald Trump, being a voice for the people, telling it like it is, even though the truth sometimes is really ugly and it's dirty. But this is why it all has to come out so that we can fix it. And we have to hold people accountable to be able to fix it. And if we continue to cover it up and we don't address the real situations and the real problem, we can never fix it because it's always hidden beneath the surface.
So I think we're getting really close to the last chances of
Yes.
being able to fix it.
I believe that
before
too.
It goes over the edge.
And see, I believe the people know that. I believe that's why this Missouri State Convention was so pivotal, because in the past, people have said, oh, this is what the establishment wants. This is what they'll allow us to do. We're going to go ahead and go with that because we don't want to make any waves. This time, a lot of our people came down as delegates, and they said, we're going to get something done. We're going to make a difference here, and we're going to keep on pushing it, and we're going to keep on pushing it. And whatever gets passed, we're going to push a lot of things, but whatever gets passed, we're not going to back down. And so we have this great platform amendment with regard to taxation, because taxation it controls the people. The IRS is what controls the people. The Russians, their counterpart is the KGB that controls the people, manipulates the people, and they consider that in the United States that's our IRS. So we've got to abolish the IRS. We've got to call this taxing what it really is. It oppresses the people, it controls the people, it targets people, it robs the people, and we've got to, I'm a fair tax advocate. I have been for a really long time, and a lot of people, the media, for example, really misrepresents the fair tax because they call it a flat tax, and then people start thinking, well, I'm going to be taxed even on top of, what the fair tax is. Right. And that's not accurate. But when people understand the fair tax and they understand the benefits and how it abolishes the IRS and lets them take home their whole paycheck, then they're really educated about it. And education is the key, that we have more informed voters than they tell their friends, because word of mouth is so powerful. That's what this grassroots effort is all about. It's about word of mouth, and it's about educating and telling your friends, getting them on board, and then we all show up and make a difference.
When did you decide to do this? I mean,
when did I decide to run?
Did God lay this on your heart?
Do you know that? That is really interesting. 6 years ago, I'm actually an inner city pastor and been in business, been a publisher, worn all kinds of hats. But 6 years ago, I ran for U.S. Senate when it was an open seat. And I had no political experience. Really, I was teaching at the jail. I've done prison ministry for a long time. And I was preaching a message to the girls, the women, that God can do the impossible. And sometimes when we're giving these messages out, we find out that it's more for us than it is for them. But because in that prison situation, a lot of these people, they don't think they can get jobs. They don't think there's any hope for them. But the television happened to be on at the time, and I looked up, and they were featuring Kit Bond, and they said, well, he's not going to run for this open seat, U.S. Senate. And I thought, okay, but whatever. And then God spoke to my heart, and he said, I need you to run for this U.S. Senate seat. And I thought, are you kidding? Why would I do that? And my mind just started turning, thinking, why would you say that? Why would I ever want to do that? But then I prayed about it a lot, and just really prayed about it. and being involved in the Tea Party, just really saw that there was a movement. It was on the very outskirts of the people rising up and getting tired of these career politicians. And even in an open seat, the party had basically chosen the person that they wanted. And I knew that, and I knew that it was going to be a fight, but I'm quite a fighter, and I enjoy the fight because I enjoy the victory. I like seeing when you make strides, even though you may not win the war, you won a lot of battles on the way, and you can win the war the next time. So there were 10 of us running in the open seat, and Roy Blunt had already pretty much been chosen by the party. He didn't show up to any of the debates, any of the events. And out of 10 people, we had a lot of Tea Party activism and debates and wonderful venues because it was an open seat. And I came in third out of 10. It really it was astounding to the political realm, the people, the establishment, because they thought, where did Kristi Nichols come from, and why did she get to the third place? The second place was a state senator, and the other people, I mean, there were 10 of us in the competition, and 3 of us, rose to the top. So that created a lot of experience for me, a lot of open doors. I was able to, the reason I came in third and placed so high is because I was able to reach the people. I reached the people. I reached the vein. I know the issues. I know what people are concerned about. I know that government has taken over a large part of our lives, and people are tired of it, and they want answers, and they want somebody that's actually a normal person, not a career politician, not an establishment person, just a normal, regular person like our founding fathers wanted us to, we the people, and that's what I am. And so 6 years went by, and it's always a little bit more challenging when you think it's challenging when it's an open seat, but when you're running up against the incumbent, you've really got a stronghold there because the party's already determined that's the person, that's who they promote. You really have to go out there and beat the doors and things like that to get the invitations. And
well, on a ballot, just the fact that the name's there, they recognize it. So.
Yes, and that's what, and Dave was saying earlier, where do I know that name, Kristi Nichols? For some reason, it resonates with people.
Actually, it's that girl.
It's an actress, Kristi McNichol, and she's a brunette. I'm a blonde, but she was on 8 is Enough. And I really think God uses that. It's amazing. People ask me all the time, how do I know you? I feel like I know you. And it's that tie-in with the name recognition. But this time...
This doesn't have anything to do with anything, but it helped.
Yeah.
God bless you with incredible looks. And so the few people that vote because of that have it. I mean, to vote for.
Well, and I'm actually the only woman, too. Yeah.
Anybody that saw you representing them on television or whatever is going to be proud of who's up there because of the way you look, not just your brain.
Well,
I mean, your brain is incredible.
Well, and it's amazing.
To say you're blonde on the air is a very big understatement because you're not least bit blonde acting.
Well,
so.
I think it's the whole package, and thank you for saying that. You're so kind. I've been blessed in the past that I was in the modeling industry and also in pageants. I've been in pageants recently in the Mrs. program to promote my marriage platform, to strengthen marriage with mentoring and education. So my husband and I teach an abstinence and a purity program, and the Pageant Avenue really gets you a platform and an audience where you can go not only in Missouri. I was blessed to win Mrs. North America in 2013, and that gave me access to everyone in the United States and Canada and all the U.S. territories. So that was a wonderful experience, but I'm a real people person, and I love to be around people. I love to hear their stories. I want to impart into their life. I want to see them make it to their God-given destiny, and I believe that we're all a part of really imparting to others, and with each of us doing our part, then we all excel and become the best that we can be.
To the people out there that haven't ever been very political, what is senator? I mean, what does that represent to them, and how important is it, and what does it cover? And
that's very important. And what I've been really trying to help people with, because a lot of people introduce me and they say Kristi's running for senator. a lot of times people assume that I'm running for state senate and they want to know what district I'm in and what can I vote for you. And I said, I'm running for U.S. senator. Each state gets 2 senators that go to Washington to represent their values, their principles, to stand up for Missouri and to represent Missourians on that federal level. So what I would be doing as a United States senator is I would be in Washington mainly most of the time. And there is legislation, for example, Roy Blunt recently voted on the omnibus spending bill, which is appalling, and it's really interesting in this time of re-election for him because that bill Missourians were against, all Americans were against, because it basically gives Obama everything that he wants. So conservatives very much against that. And it continues to fund Planned Parenthood, which we've seen with the recent undercover investigations. These people have been found selling baby parts, and they tell people it's just tissue, but yet they're selling brains for $9,000. So that's appalling to use taxpayer dollars for that. Then also this Syrian refugee resettlement of Syrian refugees. It continues to fund that. We have no idea who these people are, letting them into Missouri. Jay Nixon has let, God knows,
sneaking them in. Right.
They're sneaking them in, but the state legislators need to stand up to that. We don't know how many of these people are coming in. If you do your research, and I'm sure many of the listeners do, they know about ISIS. They know about how they're trying to infiltrate and come into our country, and what a great way to do it. They did this. Lebanon is a perfect case. They pull on the heartstrings of the people. Let us in, we're refugees. They have an underlying movement that is going in so that they can get in and destroy us from within, and then it's almost laughable it's terrible, it's sad for us to fund it and to let them do it, and they're here to destroy our nation. And when we see veterans that are getting, Roy Blunt voted yes on the legislation to cut veterans' benefits, okay, but then we're going to vote on the omnibus spending bill that funds the Syrian refugees to come in and destroy this country. I find that really appalling, and it's unconstitutional. And so obviously Roy Blunt is not standing up for Missourians. He's not standing up for America. He's not doing his job. And I have a hashtag, send Roy home. And that's what we need to do. That's what you do with people that have failed to represent the electorate, and they fail to do the job that they are paid to do by the taxpayers. His income has gone up over 1,000% the last 4 years, his net worth. The average Missourian, it's 12%. Now, how is that? Because he's not working for the people. He's working for himself. He's working with special interest groups. He's selling Missourians out.
Half the things in the state named after him.
Oh, yes.
And he hasn't done anything to do that.
He hasn't done anything. It's dishonorable. It's disrespectful to the people. And really, when I have a lot of people, Kevin, that ask me, do you believe in term limits? What do you think about term limits? I do believe in term limits. I believe that elected offices are to serve the public. They're not a career. The Founding Fathers never meant for them to be a career. You're there to serve. Then you pass legislation and you represent the people, and you go back to your state and you live under that legislation that you passed. And also the people, depending on how you behaved and how well you represented them, then they'll either welcome you back or you'll get to move to another state.
Right.
But he has not done that. His record is he's been absent for 66 votes. And the votes, like I said, I think it's appalling that he voted for this omnibus spending bill, because all the things that we did not want the liberals to get, we're supposed to stand against what the liberals want as conservatives. And he voted right along with Claire McCaskill. So
that's saying a lot right there.
That
just
says
putting
a
those
lot.
two names together.
Mm-hmm.
On all your posters and all your signage and your flyers, it's "We the People."
We the people.
Now, politicians have really picked up on all the phrases they need to say to get us on board. You mean that one.
I mean that. I
know
it because
you mean that one. I've known you long enough to know you mean that one.
I teach the Constitution, and it's we need to get more people reading the Constitution. We need to get more people informed about the Constitution and our enumerated powers that are in the Constitution. But our government was set up to be about we the people. And a lot of times, take for example Planned Parenthood. People take that name and people associate with that name and say, oh, that should be good. They're Planned Parenthood. They're not. I really mean it when I say we the people. It's a passion within me, because it is about, when I am elected as U.S. Senator, it's about representing the people, and even so much that you represent the people And the next time, if they vote you out because you were so radical against the Constitution, but I'm believing that the people stand with me, you should be able to be voted back again. But then we go back to the term limits. I'm saying that the Constitution, Congress is never, especially with these people that we've got in right now, these establishment and these career politicians, they are never going to vote term limits for themselves. And we, the people, have to do this. But think about it. In the Constitution, it's already set up on the federal level we're talking about, is that a congressman, 2 years, federal congressman for your district, and a U.S. senator, 6 years. That is 8 years of service if you choose to go from one to another. That's 8 years of serving the people. That's enough. Because if you think about it, even if we put term limits, okay, let's give the congressman 8 years and the senator 12 years. In 12 years, you can do a lot of damage. The statistics show that sometimes when the incumbent is in, it's really hard to jolt him out of that place.
Right.
And I want the people to understand that every 6 years, there's an election, and that's the term limit, and you need to vote these hirelings out.
Right. But then they can roll over into another.
Yeah, you can serve a total of 8 years. I think 8 years on the federal level is a good time to have served the people and to do it in an honorable way, and then really trust God to open another door for you. If you are going to continue in public service in the governmental realm, there'll be other places for you to serve. But I really think it breaks that power of getting people in that just stay there. Roy has been in politics for over 40 years.
Well, if we
It's
don't
time.
get this thing righted,
This is the time.
if we don't
This
get it
is the
righted
time.
pretty quick,
I have to
8
win the
years
primary.
ought to about finish the whole thing off.
Yeah, and that's what people are waking up to, Kevin. They understand that this is the time now more than ever. I remember when I announced my candidacy, we filed in February, and I had told some people before that, in January, and people said, God, don't run. You can't, no, he'll tear you up, and all kinds of different things. And I said, no, you know what? I mean, God has called me. He said, run again. You're going to run again. And now the atmosphere is what we saw down in the state convention at Missouri, people are rising up. They're realizing that they have the
Kristi,
power. They have
for
the
one
power.
thing-
The people have the power.
Blunt cannot tear you up. He might beat you maybe because his name's been there for a while, but he can't tear you up because you have nothing in your closet isn't dirty.
Well,
I mean-
and I think what people are talking about, and if
You
you
have nothing
understand,
dirty in your
I
closet.
don't, but this Peter Schweitzer book that I want to tell your listeners to, Extortion, it calls How Politicians Extract Your Money, Buy Votes, and Line Their Own Pockets. Chapter 9 is devoted to Roy Blunt. You can get this book on Amazon.com. But it's talking about almost kind of mob-type pressure tactics of pressuring the people, bullying the people, extorting the people, robbing the people, doing unethical and corrupt things. I mean, just you and I talking, if you and I were together and you said, hey, I'm running for Senate, I'm running for Senate too, we could be on the same plane knowing that you're honest, I'm honest, may the best person win, come through, right? That's not true with these career politicians and some of these establishment people. They're doing things behind the scenes, they're working people, they're manipulating people, they're doing unethical things, and that's why, I really want your listeners read this book in
Well, let me
chapter
stop
9.
you there.
Yeah.
Okay, those things are going on. I've witnessed them all. You've witnessed them all. But the only way to change that is us wiggling in there and changing it. Folks,
Standing
do not
strong.
give up on this
No,
thing.
don't
because
give up.
You giving up
Means they
lets them
win.
do
It-
what they want to do.
And it also sends a sign too. Remember, we were talking about earlier. You may, keep winning the battles. You may lose the war. You may lose some battles and win the war. Look what's happened in this Trump movement. There were so many times when we thought, and a lot of people, maybe you thought too, they were saying, okay, he's not going to make it now. This will be the end of him. We're going to be able to take him out and it'll be over. He won't be campaigning anymore. And time again, he kept rising and he kept rising and people heard what he was saying. And this is the same thing, that I'm saying. I'm saying that, the government is out of control. We, the people, have to take it back. We need to get our tax code. I mean, every year, 7,500 of new tax code pages are released and put into the tax code. People can't understand it. I think a lot of it goes to that we have an overabundance of attorneys that are state reps, that are senators, U.S. senators. They're writing this legislation, and people can't read 2,000 pages of legislation. They vote for it, they don't vote for it. There's perks in there for some people. They scratch each other's back. All of this stuff that needs to be dismantled. And if we have legislation, let's say a tax change that is 3 pages long, a health care bill that is 3 pages long, anybody that has a brain about them, that understands how to read and can read a 3-page document and vote yes or no on it. So we've got to dismantle all of these things and get it back to the original intent of the founders, where we can see what we're voting on, where we can make a difference like we did in Missouri, and keep going forward and whittle away to it, to where we dismantle all of this corruption and weed out all of these career politicians and the establishment. Because like I said, it was really refreshing for me down at the Missouri State Convention that we saw diehard establishment people vote with us. Because they heard the
I watched the votes to
I think it was over
happen.
800. I was 800 people. It's the majority of the people that voted for this, because they know that if they're a business owner or they are working in the business realm, that we are taxed so much in this country, and so overburdened with tax and regulations, that it's strangling businesses, people that have creative thoughts and ideas. We have so many inventions and patents that are born out of this country, but the government has really clamped down and suppressed the people with all of these taxes and regulations, that even if you have a good idea or great business, it'll just be destroyed because you'll be stamped out by all of the government regulations and taxes. So we've got to free that up, and that makes a difference to people, because everybody's touched by taxes.
Well, we're finally standing up. We're finally speaking out in mass enough that I think we're sending a message.
Yes.
And surely, if they've got a brain in their head, they got to realize there's no place for us to run if we don't do what these people are asking us to do.
Yeah.
And if they go into those holes that they dug for themselves, we'll just plug the hole.
Well, and that's it. We've got to keep fighting, because, my campaign, and it's really interesting, the first time that I ran, when you go to draw your ballot, you draw out your placing on the ballot and they give you a number, and mine was 414, and that is Esther 414, and I've really put that in the forefront this time of running again. Kristi Nichols 414.com. It's a message for everybody. It's not just
That's
my
your
campaign.
website,
Kristi Nichols 414.com, and it is a call. It's an Esther call, because in Esther, and it's a long verse, but basically it says, you cannot be silent. You cannot be silent, because God will rise up somebody else and they'll come along and bring forth another deliverer. But don't think
That's in the book of
that's
Esther.
in the book of Esther 4:14. Okay. And so, but deliverance comes. God sends a deliverer, but we the people cannot be silent. We can't be silent, and deliverance comes. But also the message is that we were born for such a time as this. That's the end of the verse. So people, we're thinking that we're having a really strong fight, and yes, it makes you tired, it makes you weary, but we can't be silent. Being silent doesn't work, because people don't think that there's anything wrong if everyone's silent. But we've been risen up for such a time as this, and that's why everybody has a part to do in this. We all have a part. We all have a voice. We have our sphere of friends that we can influence. We have our family, we have people in business, we have people in community that we can talk to and share our values, share our principles, let people know that they're not in this fight alone. And that's really what my campaign is doing. I'm meeting people and I'm telling them, I said, I may be the voice that's coming forth, vote for me as your next U.S. Senator, but I'm the voice of we the people. So when I'm chosen as their voice, they go with me, and that's what's important.
Well, it's got to be you that represents you. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
Right.
And there's only one of you. Now, some of the good people that I'm really going to vote for that were down at the state, they had all these kids working for them, and they were actually employees.
Yes.
Doing a very good job representing them and standing in for them, which duplicated them by 100.
Yes.
And you don't have that.
No, actually I do.
Oh, you do?
I do have volunteers, and I have people. We're doing door knocking. We're doing door-to-door, knocking based on information that we have of how people have voted in the past. And I do have a certain number of surrogates that go forth. I've seen in the past that people, how they receive those surrogates that talk in place of me. I really want to be there to meet all the people, but I can't be everywhere. So I try to hit all of the really, like I'm going to be at the Marriott with the Federated Women's, Republican Federated Women's Club, their state convention that's happening on Saturday, because we're going to have all kinds of presidents and representation to cover all the counties that are going to be there. But I do have that, but people have to understand that Roy Blunt and some of these people, this is a grassroots effort, and I love that it's a grassroots effort. Roy Blunt has millions of dollars. He has $10 million. He has 22 people that travel with him all the time. And in a grassroots effort, you have to do a lot of praying, and you really have to trust God, because there's a lot of things that I would love to do, and there has to be, people are welcome to donate on the site that you can donate. Each person can donate up to $2,700 per person. Every dollar, every $10, every $5 matters, because that buys signage, that buys printing, and awareness and things like that. But it's, I would like to appeal to the grassroots people. There was one gal in St. Louis, and she said they're doing banners, and they're doing an RV for me with my picture and my website on it.
Oh,
and they
great.
chose to do that, and they're raising the money for that. But they said, we need to put our money where our mouth is, because we're not going to get a grassroots candidate. Everybody can do something. And I use every dollar to the maximum capacity and trust God to multiply the fishes and the loaves in that.
Now, are you a mom?
Do you know I'm not? No.
Oh, wow. So that you don't have that to tie you down.
I don't. Actually, I pastored in the inner city for a number of years, and that was really my heart. And in conjunction with that, I spent 10 years at the Jackson County Correctional Facility as a pastor and as a counselor, and I even directed the choir there. Most of our church came from the jails in the Hispanic community. And what we did, Kevin, with our church is that it was a different model. A lot of people have a building, and they have to support the building, and they have salaries and things like that. What we did is that we were in a government building, a community center, so every time we had to set up the sound system, the chairs, and all of that. But everybody in leadership...
Which makes people get to know each other better than anything
They do, and people
ever
come
will.
in off the road, they just happen to be exercising, or in the community center, they end up in the service, and they end up, dedicating their lives to the Lord. But it was a different model, because there were no salaries to pay, because everybody worked outside in the leadership, so everything could go back into the community. And we were able to, Kevin, get back into the community, Bibles, teaching, clothing, school supplies, much more than a lot of bigger churches, because we had no overhead.
Right.
I mean, it was giving back to the community, and that's what I've done all my life. Is I've been in public service in the private sector. I've been on the mission field in 12 different nations, worked a lot in China with the underground church. My whole life has been dedicated to serving people to the maximum capacity and giving back to the community and to neighborhoods and to nations what I could give back, and doing it in an innovative way that produces maximum results. And that's why I think that my Senate campaign is so successful, because I know how to maximize those dollars
Right.
and make them work for the people.
Well, without getting you in trouble with the people you have a history with, when I know you've been involved with Tea Party pretty heavy, and some of those people are very difficult to wake up to just how bad things really are. They're so patriot blind sometimes to the things. You are more libertarian minded than most of the Tea Party people I know.
Well, I think our Tea Party was In God We Trust Tea Party. And primarily, we were focusing on giving people a voice and also educating people. We focused on the Constitution. We focused on fair tax. We focused on people that were running, that were out of the box, non-establishment, non-career politicians, a real grassroots movement. So what I saw with the Tea Party is it went in phases. That people came initially because they just wanted to be heard. They wanted to hold up their sign.
Right.
They wanted to see other people with their signs and know that they're not alone. And then we established this group that was growing through word of mouth, and we could implement the education part, always teaching on the Constitution. Really, I was amazed, too, at how many families brought their young people and their children because they wanted them to be part of this movement. But what I saw with the Tea Party that was a little bit disheartening is that the establishment we were trying to infiltrate the Republican Party to make change. They sold a bill of goods to a lot of the Tea Parties. When Roy ran 6 years ago, in Branson, they called him a Tea Partier, and he was the furthest thing from the Tea Party. But what he did was he got that endorsement from the Tea Party and literally destroyed that Tea Party because people knew that he was not part of that movement, and it was appalling to them to be using that name. But what the Republican Party did is that they pretended, in my opinion, to hold hands with the Tea Party and to give us a voice, but when it came down to the final decision making, you all don't matter. And that was very disheartening to the Tea Partiers, because I always have the best outlook on people. I want to trust people. I want to think the best of them. And then it's very disheartening to me when the cover's pulled off.
Yeah, but you've had the cover pulled off enough that
yes,
you're somewhat of a bulldog.
Well, I am, and when I was in, I take that.
You're as close to getting Chris Ann Hall into the government as I can imagine.
Yes, and I love Chris Ann Hall, and I encourage people.
You're just like her.
Well,
you're just like her.
I love her, and she actually, a friend of mine was running for city council, and we had a benefit for her, and she was coming in at the same time, and it was so wonderful because she was able to teach the women unknown things in history during the American Revolution, how instrumental and important women were behind the scenes. For example, when they had the Tea Party, the original Tea Party, and I'm all for that the men, they dressed up and they hid themselves, in costumes and things like that. Well, the women took it a step further, and they made a petition and petitioned the government and actually signed their names and said, we are not going to buy these required items, and we're saying that we're not going to buy these required items. There's certain items that you couldn't buy unless they were issued by the government. Sound familiar?
All of them were items women used every day.
Yes, in their households every day that you couldn't get along with. And they signed their names and said, we're not going to do that. But understand, too, when they signed their names, Abigail Adams, she understood that she was tying her husband to that and his livelihood. I mean, that's what we have to instill in people. This is the time for the revolution within. And there's nothing wrong with saying that language, because we had a revolution before with Great Britain when we were British subjects. I want people to remember that. It wasn't America against Britain. It was we were British subjects and we were rebelling against Britain and the way that they were treating us, that we wanted to be declared independent from them. So when the government gets out of hand, once again, we the people have to rise up and say, we're ready for the revolution, whatever that is. And for our founding fathers, that meant their lives and their honor and their fortune, people that had been established, in business and strong people of the community, they had their names trashed and defamed for no reason other than they wanted the revolution to stop. And I believe, like I said, I spent a lot of time in China with the underground church, and so seeing that and being a part of that and understand that communism and Marxism and socialism is here now in the United States, and people that have not seen that oppression in other nations. Like you said, the United States is everyone's last hope. There is no place else to go, and that's worth fighting for, the liberty all in itself, because we are a nation that has been set apart by God to have liberty and freedom, and it was established by our founding fathers, and they were very much wordsmiths. A lot of people say, well, this was unnecessary in the Constitution. No, it was all very strategic and calculated. And a lot of people lost their lives, fighting for the liberty in this nation. And we've got to be willing to do that, too. I'm not saying that we're going to go all shoot each other and things like that, but we've got to be like Esther 4:14. We cannot remain silent, and we've all got to do our part with a vigilance and not quiet down.
Well, it has to, folks. It has to happen now.
Yeah.
Just think about this, Kristi. The people that watch TV every night, probably no minimum of 2 hours.
Okay. Yeah.
If they decided, you know what, I'm about to lose my nation. I've got grandkids, I've got children, or whatever. I'm about to lose my nation. I want to do something to change this place.
Yes.
If they took that 2 hours an evening and latched on to promoting you to the U.S. Senate.
That would be wonderful, yes.
Now, you wouldn't want a long-haired guy like me, a fat, long-haired guy.
We want everyone. Everyone is a patriot, and everyone that loves this nation, yes.
But if people actually took the pride in themselves to get off their butt and away from the TV and go represent somebody that will actually change the nation like you will. A couple hours.
Yeah, think about what 2 hours can do. I have it, I have my brochures here.
We'd contact everybody that way.
We would. We'd contact everyone in Missouri. We would reach out among, the states and different people, states where our families are and things like that. But also, I have with my brochures, tell 12 friends. Like you said, 2 hours, tell 12 friends. Imagine what we could do with that if people shared my website, shared my Facebook page or my Twitter, and told 12 friends about that, or just told all their friends.
Well, it's going to take a little money because
yes.
the 12 friends that I told, I would want the flyer that has your picture on it.
Yeah.
Because it helps.
It does.
And when your name is right there, your face is right there, when that ballot's sitting in front of them, they're going to remember that name, Kristi Nichols.
And it's a little flyer that you can fold up and put in your pocket, and it talks about the issues. I'm pro-life. Yeah, I am pro-traditional marriage. I am against Common Core. Another thing that people are very disturbed about, this Common Core initiative, which is basically an indoctrination. In China and Japan, they're about education. They're about educating their children so that they can be the best that they can be. With Common Core, what it is, because it's being paid by the Pearson Group and other Saudi Arabia countries, they've been doing this for years in the colleges. And now they want the high school and the grade school. They want everybody, because Hitler proved that, with the brown shirts. If you can get them early enough and indoctrinate them into your way of thinking, it basically, takes 15 years. They spent 15 years trying to deprogram these people that Hitler programmed, because they actually thought that it was right to kill Jews and, that this would be this society that would take over according to Hitler's rules. And so what Common Core does is that it's an indoctrination program. There's 37 pages that it's guised under social studies. It's actually indoctrination into Islam. And Roy Blunt, again, we bring him up, he voted against the legislation, but he wrote an amendment that I think is far more wicked than the actual legislation, that it lets teachers be classified as mental health professionals, teachers, okay? I'm a family and marriage counselor. I know that teachers have a wonderful purpose in educating our young people and our children, future leaders of our generation. They are not qualified to be mental health care professionals, but this is what this amendment did that passed. So they designate them as a mental health care professional. Now think about, the worst case scenario. Let's say teachers are supposed to be indoctrinating these children into Common Core. Let's everybody be mediocre. We don't want anybody to excel. We want to indoctrinate you into Islam. Oh, we've got this girl and this little boy, very strong family background, very strong Christian background, very strong family background. I think they're a little odd. They're not accepting this teaching. I'm going to recommend them for a mental health evaluation. Okay, so it's targeting, just like the IRS. So they get evaluated. This goes on their record.
Right.
And then also when they have that who evaluates them for a mental health evaluation, then we may need to put them on drugs.
Most definitely drugs.
Yeah, and then, so what does that do to a child and their creativity? And how did we decide that they needed a mental health evaluation? This teacher decided that. What was the reasons? What were there? Was it skewed? Was it targeted specifically? So we can't have teachers doing this, and we can't have our children susceptible to these kind of antics within the school realm. Because what they're doing in the school realm also, and part of this Common Core strategy, is that they're data gathering. They're data mining, they're data gathering on the children, not only about the children, your upbringing,
family.
your entire family, your
Right.
parents, your grandparents, and then with this Common Core math, I don't know if you've seen that or not, it is so crazy. For the simplest equation, making algorithms out of it. They have children that are under great emotional stress because they can't do the simplest problems, because they've taken what's so simple and just made it just ridiculously complicated. And then also, you're separating them from the family, because we have a 6 years of age child that their 20 years of age sister, let alone their mother or their grandmother, can't help them with this math.
Right.
Only the teacher can. See, and that's a worrisome program, because it's separating you from your family, that you can only get educated.
The whole thing's just absolutely sick.
It's ludicrous, yeah.
It's sick and it won't work.
It's destructive.
And if we let it come about, we're screwed. We're done.
Whoa, because
We're done.
these are the future
We're done.
leaders, and
Right.
if you train them up like Hitler did the brown shirts, and you brainwash them into basically that they're just government drones. and they can only be what the government tells them to be. That is a slippery slope.
Well,
that
we
is
still
a
got some
communist
good
slope.
teachers left.
Yes, we do. We do.
We got good teachers left, but the teachers coming into the system are educated the same way the Common Core educated.
Yes.
I mean, the colleges are screwing
So
them
we've
up.
got to put a stop to it, and that's where we, the people, it is the people that are in control of the government. The people, I mean, I guarantee you that if you had parents showing up at individual schools and even some of the school board meetings, and we've seen some of the havoc that's gone on when parents do rise up and they're opposing, they get, like you said, you opened the program and said, sometimes we have to be willing to go to jail. Are the children worth it? Yes, they are, because we have to stand up for our core principles and values, and we know that this teaching is destructive. We know that there's an underlying current behind Common Core, and it's not about making the children the best they can be, the smartest and the most educated, so that they can get the greatest job and come up with inventions and be, have patents and things like that. It's about making them into the average person that the government wants them to be, and they don't want anybody to excel, and they don't want anybody to get out of their box when it's in turn the government that needs to get back into their box.
Right. I'm going to open up the phone lines if you don't mind. There's not hardly any time left, and you certainly can take up the rest of it. But 792-1140 if you want to talk to Kristi.
Wonderful.
Or
We'd love to
ask
take
her a
your
question.
questions.
Ask her a tough question because she can handle all of them. Common Core, a lady addressed Common Core down at the state convention, and she was saying she didn't really trash Common Core too much. She just said there are good teachers.
Yes.
It's the parents that's the problem. And there is no doubt about that. Now, Kristi, you said you represent the people.
Yes.
But half the people don't represent themselves. I mean,
and that's something that we have to
for them.
Yes, and we have to, I think, through education and really giving people examples and letting them see really what happens in a communist country when you don't have any say about how your children are educated, what they believe in. If you've seen that firsthand, or know someone that has experienced that firsthand, you see how damaging and for the future leaders that can be. So parents really need to. I know people are busy and people are out in the workforce, but think about the future. Think about the big picture. When you have a child that has grown up, that has been indoctrinated contrary to your values and what you believe, I would think that would be fighting. I mean, people are all in an uproar over this bathroom issue, and I've talked to men. They said, boy, if somebody goes in there after my daughter, there's going to be a revolution.
Well, and people don't realize it because of what they've already put into place. If you touch that person, that's a hate crime. That's 20 years automatic.
And see,
folks, they have backed us into a corner.
We have to reclaim the language, too.
They have backed us into a corner.
It's not a hate crime to stand up for your values and your principles.
Well, because they backed us into a corner.
It's wrong.
It's time to act like you're backed into a corner and do something about it. Hey, let's put Robert on the line. Go ahead, Robert.
Hello.
Go ahead.
I have a question about, you were talking about you did ministry and a lot of Hispanics and whatnot. What's your take on the illegal immigrants from the South, not just the Muslims from the Middle East?
Is your question specifically when we're talking about ministry? Are you talking about churches that are taking money for these illegal immigrants? I'm not sure I understand your question.
I'm asking
I think
your
he's talking
view.
about the southern border.
I'm asking your view on the illegal immigration from Central America.
Well, I think that we need to build the wall, and we need to stop all illegal immigration, because if we don't enforce the laws that are already on the books, people from other nations, they see that as a weakened state, and it's sad to say, but we've lost a lot of respect in the United States. And when if you go into Iran and you're an illegal, they just go ahead and shoot you. And we're letting all these illegals in, and we're looking the other way. They've been told to look the other way. The people on the border patrol that wants to do their job has been told to stand down. So we need to build a wall, and we need to enforce the laws that are on the books.
I got another question for you.
Okay.
I mean, we're running short on time. You were talking about those who are in your church, and there's a lot of Hispanics that converted in the prison. They're part of your congregation.
Yes.
What about those illegals that come into your congregation? Are you for sending them back so that they can do their paperwork, or are you for keeping them here so they can do their paperwork?
No, I'm for sending them back. Anybody that is in this country illegally, I don't care. They can get Jesus in Mexico as easily as they can in Kansas City. And if they've come into this country illegally, then they need to go back. No, that's not where anyone that is illegal, that's a crime. And so they need to go back to their country, and they need to be deported.
The reason why I worded it the way I did was because of people that are for what you're just saying, but when it comes to people in their congregation who are illegal, they're like all of a sudden they're soft-hearted and mushy, and they don't want to send them back because they're good people.
No, everything is very black and white to me. If you're an illegal and you've committed, you are a criminal,
Folks,
and so you have to go back to your country.
Let me answer this the best way I can answer it. Tonight, I'm going to show a 5-minute clip on gumballs on immigration. It is so plain that that's what I show to all my Mexican friends. I love Mexican people. I was Mexican missionary for years, and I love them, but they just can't understand why it won't work till you show them gumballs on immigration, and their eyes light up and they go, oh my gosh.
They get it.
They get scared because they're here.
Yeah.
And it's not going to work. So, anyway, I'll show that tonight. I got 20 seconds? Well, shoot. Sorry about that. Anyway, I'll show gumballs on immigration tonight. Kristi, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
We need 2 hours with you, not an hour.
Thank you so much. Remember my website, KristiNichols414.com.
And she'll drop in on movie night once in a while, I think.
Yes.
Maybe.
Thank you, Kevin.